Welcome to the Speaker Series webinar hosted by Argyle Lodge tonight. It's a bit of a social get-together. For those that I've yet to meet, my name's Liam Cole and I'm the Master of Argyle Lodge and your host this evening. Before we start, we want to have a couple of important procedural items about the Speaker Series. I ask you all to mute your mics because there's a bit of feedback coming through that I can hear. Questions and comments can be typed in the sidebar of your screen, the icons at the bottom, and that can be done during the presentation and we'll come back to them at the end. I'm hoping to record this so that it can be shared amongst those that are unable to attend this evening and also on other social media platforms. This is the first of what I hope to be a series of talks that can inform and inspire our membership. Following the leadership program that I was a participant in last year, I was keen to invite those that participated to present at Argyle Lodge the wonderful work we did in our various clans. Unfortunately, the tyranny of distance and our busy schedules we all live meant that this was a very challenging task to arrange. With lockdown set to continue and the popularity of online meetings growing, I thought this was a great opportunity to invite speakers to our virtual social meetings and where the reach of the audience can be wider. There's supposed to be a short, sharp session and it's planned to have the presentation that will hopefully lead to some thought-provoking discussions, both in this forum and within our wider network. So sit back and enjoy as I welcome Brother Ash Long, FV Editor and Chair of the Communication VAT, I hope I've got that right, to outline the work of the Communication VAT and how we, at the grassroots level of Freemasonry, can be involved.
You're mindful of the thing.
I've prepared a number of questions to start the evening, so grab a cup of tea or something maybe a little stronger and enjoy. So it is recording now, guys. So, Brother Ash, where are you a member?
I'm a member at Ivanhoe Grammarians Lodge, which is meeting at the Darebin or Ivalda Masonic Centre, which is northeast of Melbourne, about 20 minutes out of Melbourne, and I've been a member there for 42 years.
So your role within the lodge, you've been a member for 42 years?
Yeah, I'm lodge secretary, and it gives me the opportunity to explain. I've not been through the chair. I'm a master mason. Some years back I had a heart attack, and that meant that an inability to learn ritual to a standard that I would like, and that means that I felt that I can best serve my lodge by taking on a role such as secretary. I do a lot of work overnight. I'm a newspaper editor, and it's not uncommon for our members to receive emails from me at 3 or 4 in the morning. It might take me a little longer to do things, but I can do them in my own time. And so I'm Brother Ash Long, Master Mason, who applied for a job to chair the volunteer action team for communications and marketing. And it's a job that I enjoy.
So you've already mentioned that you're a newspaper editor up in Murrindindi Shire, beautiful part of the world, by the way. I lived for a short period in Seymour and know Yea and that quite well. So what other experiences or qualifications, I suppose, and not to disparage you or anything like that, that's not what this is about. It's about to learn more. What experience have you had that has led you to being the chair of the Communications VAT?
I started newspaper work when I was 12. It was 1969 and a new publication came out into the field. It was called the Sunday Observer and it was Victoria's first Sunday newspaper. I was very lucky, first just as a delivery boy, but our family got involved in a distribution run and it meant that we had to attend at the printing factory. And I got the world's best apprenticeship. I was allowed to do anything. I could work on the presses, I could help with the makeup of the pages. And as a teenager, that was terrific experience learnt on the job. In those days, newspaper training really was on the job rather than being theory at a technical college or university. And by about 14 or 15, Liam, I was a stringer, and that means writing items on churches and schools and community organisations. And I learned very quickly about how local journalism works. I was paid 4.5 cents per printed line, and that meant that I knew the questions to ask so that I could write more lines, and that included names and faces and what people were doing. And by about the age of 18, having worked with a number of organisations, I started work casually, both in the publishing side, but also on the journalism side. By age 21, I was one of the younger managers of a newspaper up in the Dandenongs for a group called Leader Newspapers. And Leader Newspapers grew into a network. So I was given many, many opportunities of working in classifieds and display advertising, and then in management, distribution, all the facets. So at age 63 now, I'm probably still the industry's oldest apprentice, still learning. I'm excited by what we do. Leader Newspapers in the past month announced that they were withdrawing from that field. They have stopped printing their newspapers. They had something like 33 different titles, and that's given the company that I own an opportunity to start some new titles, and we're up to our 3rd new title in the suburbs of Melbourne, as well as the Melbourne Observer, the local paper, and we've got editions in the north, the east, and next week we start a 3rd edition, the northwest. But I've also worked in radio on the production side with 3AW. I've worked in television, and that involved some work with Optus and Channel 31. And I was one of the first publishers of an online newspaper back in the 1990s. So when the advertisement appeared for a volunteer action team chair, we broke the mould. In the past, it's been worshipful masters or people with higher pre-nominals and post-nominals. But I put through an application because I felt that there was something that was needed, but there was also something that I thought I might be able to achieve in partnership with a talented committee. And we can talk about that shortly.
I just have a question from Andrew Davenport, who I believe is Berwick Way, Cardinia Way. I see that the leader left the local space. You have introduced a local paper. How has advertisement revenues going for the new publication, and has it been well received?
Well, the last question first. It's been mightily received, and the phones, we haven't known an office with the phones ringing so much, of readers especially. The newspapers have been in the black since day one, which is very encouraging. And our first endeavour was to get the newspapers published and out there. And we wanted to claim the space, so to speak. But from day one on every one of the newspapers, they've been running profitably, and we see a lot of what they'd call blue sky ahead. So I hope that answers the question. We're bringing back perhaps a journalism that hasn't been seen for a long time. I think the local newspapers, especially in the metropolitan area, have probably suffered from being staffed on a shoestring by younger journalists keen to make their mark, keen to move on to radio, television, and a bit more prominence. And our older style of journalism is more a positive one, of not picking fights, certainly taking on our responsibilities of reporting the news, but encouraging achievement, of fostering development, of looking after people, especially the young, and reporting their doings and being praiseworthy of what they're doing. So that type of product has always been received well in my experience, and that's what we hope to bring to these communities, Liam.
I know that locally we've lost our newspaper down at Yarram. Not that it was much of a newspaper. They've shut up the printing service. I'm having a go at you, Andrew. But no, it's a bit of a shame in the particularly in regional and rural areas where that's still key communication for.
Well, I know with the
communities.
Yarram Standard News, they were one of the first newspapers back in March to say, look, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can revisit once the crisis is over. At the time, newspapers were shutting at Mildura, Swan Hill, nearby in the Gannawarra area, and even in our own case, for about 8 weeks, we printed online only, and we came back in late May to be printing at first what we call austerity issues, or austerity editions, smaller than what they'd normally be, but to at least get out there. We've gradually built back. We're very conscious that we need to be a responsible commercial operator. We've got to pay our bills. But I'm pleased to say that from next week, our major regional newspaper returns to its full size, both in print and online. And the expansion with other titles, with some others to follow, hopefully, is going exactly the way that we thought it might. So we're encouraged by that, Liam.
Oh, good to hear. Can you share with those in attendance the work that the VAT's done to this point, the work you'd
sure.
like to achieve, and how us in local lodge land can be of assistance? That's probably key. So you've got the floor. You take as long as you like, and for those that are with us, pop some questions down in the corner if you would like.
Liam, the Communications and Marketing Volunteer Action Team intends to be just that. We want to be volunteers that add value to what the communications staff and marketing staff are doing in the Grand Secretariat. And we think that we can do that by having a committee, but also an army of volunteers. Now, the committee has people who are involved in a number of communications and marketing disciplines. We have a radio man, because what we want to do is to encourage community communications from Freemasons, using especially community radio, but also commercial radio. We have people who are talented with graphic arts. We must make our messages appealing. We have some people who are involved in IT, both on the technical side, but also in search engine optimization. And for instance, the suggestion has been made that when you go to the Freemasons Victoria website at the moment, it has a subtitle which is about a third place. Now, we possibly know what that means, but to Google, it means nothing. And even if we had men's social club, and I'm not suggesting that those are the choice words, it would achieve more for us in attracting more to our website. We want to have people on the volunteer action team, not necessarily on a committee, but we want people in each lodge to be able to file reports. So when it's time, we'll have a What's On guide in our FV News, which is an opt-in service, but we'll have a What's On guide where you can look what's happening tonight, what's happening this week, and you can select with up-to-date information about where you're going to go. And that's part of the membership retention and development strategy. I'm very pleased that Paul Brennan is here with us tonight. He's the chair of the Membership Volunteer Action Team, who have hit the road running. Paul's committee and our committee are working very much in tandem, and we have a mighty personal association, but professionally for the craft, we want something that's integrated, something that's meshed, something that's blended, so that we're both at the same time working in the same direction. And we also do that with the other VAT leaders Matt Donato, who's with Works, and Ian Buckingham, who's with Masonic Knowledge. And we feel that it's important. We're meeting fortnightly, just the meeting of the four of us. That's never happened before. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can put out a message with one voice, as we call it, so that the messages always seem to be on the same train each week. And we're working in tandem with the Grand Secretariat. We're working alongside the marketing team in the head office. And I think what you'll find is, once upon a time, people say we don't hear anything from Grand Lodge. It might then turn into a case of we're hearing so much from Grand Lodge, could you ration it? The FV News initiative was a very important one, Liam. We had the opinion that there needed to be a timely communication to members so that you're not waiting for a journal 3 months later. It needed to have an urgency about it. It needed to be positive, and that's one of the guiding principles of what we're doing. The positivity of it is, and this comment is not directed at any person, is that we were in danger of our communications becoming quite negative. And especially on Facebook, if you were a young man and you were doing your due diligence and you were looking to perhaps join Freemasonry, with some of the chatter that was going on in public, you would quite possibly make the decision, no, I don't think that I'll join that. That's not what I thought Freemasonry was about. So one of the things is to try and clean up the act with social media. And to quite a degree, I think we've done that. We created a new page called Freemasons Victoria Chat on Facebook. And we migrated at least 90% of those who were active. And within, I think, the first 10 days, about 660 members had migrated that. And again, it's an opt-in service. You had to go through the process of establishing your identity that you're a member of a Victorian lodge. And there was also a validity test applied there. And the chat has cleaned up largely. What was happening is that in our shop window, we were brawling and we were using unmasonic language and unmasonic thoughts, and it wasn't a good look. Now, that's occasionally happening, but what we're trying to do without being draconian is perhaps taking people aside online and saying, look, we'd prefer you didn't go in that direction. We're not going to silence you, but we do have obligations as Freemasons to behave in a particular way. So that's another of the early priorities that we've had for communications and marketing. We've got lots of things we want to do. There is in Freemasons Victoria a document called the Strategic Plan, and 2017 to 2025. It covers a long period. Some of the expectations in that strategic plan, I think Paul would agree with me, are totally unrealistic in 2020. It couldn't be foreseen that we'd be in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of the figures that were estimated have just gone out of the window. And so a lot of the key performance indicators are no longer relevant. In the early draft of that document, it had our membership at possibly at 11,000. That was modified to 9,000. The truth is it's closer to 8,000. And we may lose numbers because of this virus. In my lodge, the dues notices go out effective June 30. And we've already received a couple of resignations. We may be able to reverse some. There's some we won't, but I think the danger is we will find some members saying, I've got quite used to staying at home. I haven't have to go out into the winter cold. I can have a glass of wine with my dinner and I don't have to worry about 0.05. So I think we can get some advantages from this crisis. Here we are together tonight having a discussion that we probably would not have had prior to the coronavirus situation. And I think when we start to reopen, there will be situations where members might be immunocompromised, and it would be a better decision for them and a better decision for their brothers that they not attend in those early months, because there might be the danger that they get sick, and that's the last thing we want. At the moment, we have a ruling from the Board of General Purposes that country lodges will be allowed to reopen from August the 1st, subject to government regulation, and then possibly the metropolitan lodges will follow 1 month later. It's likely that there'll be no ritual or ceremonial work, and that could be for some months. I think practically speaking, if the coronavirus situation got better rather than worse, we might not be looking to ritual, and I'm only guessing, until perhaps early next year. And I think the same might apply for installations, but there's still a lot we can do in terms of business, in terms of education like this, and our job in communications and Paul's job in the membership of that is to encourage that and find new ways of learning, find new ways of being a brother. We might not see each other at lodge, but we might now start new habits of phoning members. We might encourage the members who haven't been online literate. We might be able to have young members visit them and perhaps set up their system so it becomes easy for them. And we might be able to do a whole range of other things. Liam, is that answering that question? I can proceed.
I think
further.
Yep.
Okay. The strategic plan asks us to do a number of things, and one of the goals is that we achieve $1 million worth of publicity. That's a commercial value in commercial media, and we've taken the approach that we can achieve that without paying a dollar. We believe that by fostering relationships with local media operators, both community, print and radio especially, but also online, that we can achieve that. We can, for instance, ask a lodge member at lots of lodge meetings around the state to take photos of lodge meetings and more photos of community work that we're doing, and submit them to local publishers who will gladly accept them because they'll be working on a shoestring too. And we need to get guidelines out to lodges. We need to be able to help them. And another one of the goals is that we set up we'll call it a service bureau, so that a lodge that's looking to update its summons, to update its correspondence, to possibly put together a website, can get some help from Freemasons who have been that course before, who know what they're doing, and so that this service is delivered free to them by volunteers. We want to recruit volunteers who will put together lists for us. It's going to be a massive task to put together a up-to-date, accurate what's on guide. And there are some Freemasons who are confined to barracks who I am sure would love the task of working online and putting together. There are some people who like lists and there are some who don't, and I'm sure that some of the people who are housebound would love a big project like that to undertake. So that's another one of the goals that we're undertaking. A further goal is to increase our reach into multicultural communities. So ethnic communities where perhaps another language is spoken, and we would like to reach them via the printed media as well as online, both radio and television as well. And we feel as though that is a good potential extension. We need to change some of the messages. It's not just how we say things, but what we say. It includes the type of behaviour that the community expects of Freemasons. So we perhaps need a little bit of a cultural change, and the Board of General Purposes is addressing that. We want to be able to help individual lodges in being recognised for their achievements, and we want to recognise individuals as well. We want to be able to help country lodges, especially because many country lodges have felt disenfranchised, have felt like they're taking orders from head office in the city, and that's inappropriate. And I think that feeling has been around for probably a decade or two, rather than just in a specific time period. So I think what we need to do is help empower country lodges with some modern tactics and skill them with some of the talents that are needed to get out the message, to communicate with our communities. As regards marketing, that's going to be a task that is absolutely hand in glove with the membership VAT. And I know that Paul Brennan has set up 4 teams within his volunteer action team. And you might be able to give Paul an opportunity soon to just briefly introduce what those 4 teams are about. I'm excited about, especially about one of them, and it's called the Welcome Back team. And that team is looking at not only welcoming back people after the COVID situation, but welcoming back people who have been unaffiliated, who might have left Lodge or Freemasonry for very good reasons at the time, who really only need to be asked back. For some, it will be that simple. We have a database called Salesforce. I'm not in love with it. I don't have access to the data in it. That's kept very private. But as I'm told, there are something like 50,000 records of unaffiliated members. Now, if we got 1% of those coming back to join Freemasonry, 1%, there'd be 500 new members. I understand from Damien Hudson, who works in the Grand Lodge office, working from home at the moment, that there are also hundreds at the moment that he has processed. We are attracting new members. There's a handbrake on it at the moment, not for anything that we've done, but I think one of the priorities from the membership side of things, but communications and marketing comes into it as well, is finding a process where we deal much more efficiently with applications, sorting them just from expressions of interest, and processing them in a timely and valued way. So that's another one of the tasks that we want to do. I think you'll be hearing soon about some website improvements for Freemasons Victoria, but that's not for me to announce. We want to be able to help lodges with newsletters, websites, outreaching to the community, and we also want to have communication within our craft from the Board of General Purposes, explaining their decisions, explaining what they're doing and why. Obviously, there'll be some confidential decisions relating to legal or commercial matters, but there is a requirement actually that the Board of General Purposes report to its members. And I think if you look now at the paperwork attached to this Saturday's quarterly communication, you'll find an eagerness now from the board to communicate with the members and to explain. And the communications and marketing VAT will have a role in that as well. How are we going, Liam?
No, great, Ash. I do have a question from Merv Moon, who's Assistant DC at Argyle Lodge. Ash, I feel that we as Freemasons don't know how to engage non-Freemasons in discussion about what Freemasonry has to offer them. I believe we need some time to spend some time to understand what we have to offer and develop an elevator pitch to use to engage non-Freemasons. Is this something that the VAC can help us with? And if so, how can we work to develop it?
Matt, Merv, you are absolutely spot on. We don't know what to say. We haven't sat down. Do you know, at age 63, in my 51 years, I still write scripts for myself when I'm talking on the phone to my newspaper clients. If I still haven't got it in my head 51 years down the track, how do new Freemasons strike up a conversation? So yes, we do need to prepare suggested elevator scripts. That's a 30-second script where we interest people. It doesn't have to sound staccato, it doesn't have to sound wooden or rehearsed, but it gives us guidelines of what to say. So Merv, yes, you are absolutely 100% on the money there. We do need to work out what we're going to say. If we're tongue-tied when someone asks us about Freemasonry, they're not going to feel confident about joining with us if we don't know what it's about or can't express it. So I feel that the VAT can do something. We have in mind what's called a cookbook, and it might be something in the order of about 150 pages from the drafts that's been done. We don't expect people to read the lot, but if you want to look up the conversation to have, or perhaps you're looking to, let's say, run a barbecue at Bunnings, there'll be a single page there with a bit of a checklist of the steps that you should go through and some suggested ideas. There'll be no compulsion for you to follow the cookbook suggestions, but it will come from members who have been down that course before and found out what not to do, as well as what to do. So I reckon that's a great question.
I have one from Rob Kovacs, who's my junior warden. Hello, Ash. Aren't there already Masonic lodges based around other nationalities, e.g. Filipino lodges? How do we integrate with them or their wider community?
Yeah, that's not totally a question for me. I can only talk about my portfolio, so to speak. I believe that we should do that through established lodges. That's my personal opinion, and I think it's going to be beneficial to both the aspiring member but also the lodges that currently exist. We're going to hear new ideas, new thoughts, new perspectives. I'm not a big fan, and I'm not accusing anyone of this, but in community of having enclaves, so to speak. I don't think that helps with integration or multicultural living. I think we can all get on together, and I think we can all learn from each other. And so I think what we need to do is first start the conversation with people who we're not talking with at the moment. And that's first getting news out through print, through radio, through online. And it's probably showing examples of people in their own community doing good things, showing an example of why people should become a Freemason, or at least express interest in what we do.
Spot on. Given that we have such a wide age bracket in our membership, I look at the room now and there's quite a number of my members that don't own a computer, in very senior in the lodge. They're unlikely to own a computer. How do you propose to communicate with the broader membership? This is one means. Facebook targets a certain demographic. How do you propose to engage all of the members, I suppose? A tough question.
Yeah, and it's a tough answer as well. We have to recognise exactly what you said, that not all members are computer literate, or that even if they are, that they're not going to engage to the same level that younger people might. And so we really do, as well as our online activities, still need to embrace traditional methods. And a lot of that involves print. I mentioned earlier that we've got the $1 million target of promotion and publicity. I'm pleased to say that just only in the newspapers that I'm involved in, for instance, Richard Elkington's on the front cover of one this week, as Grand Master-elect, publicising the grand installation. We intend to have a page each week in a number of newspapers across the state that explains what Freemasonry is doing. Now, we won't be talking of secrets, we won't be talking of private information, but we will be having messages out there in the community each week that show off what we're doing, that highlight our community work, that highlight our charitable work, that give us a shop window to people who perhaps are never on the internet. And it will maintain morale. It will put us in good stead with a larger community other than just our membership, but it will also widen the message that we're trying to send out. So I like the point that's just been made. We should not rely on internet alone as our communications future. And we need to look to traditional methods. And that's why I'm suggesting too that lodges, as well as phone calls to members, produce published newsletters, maybe they're monthly or quarterly, and that those communications actually get out to local businesses. And it may well be that lodges can have a Friends of Argyle Lodge body that run alongside people who aren't Freemasons, but who are eager to help. And there may well be a lot of businesses around Traralgon or in the Latrobe Valley. They don't want to join. They don't want to be at our meetings, but quite happy to help us. And we need to communicate them in perhaps more traditional ways.
No, you're right. And there was something that, as part of the leadership program I did, and the clans that I worked on with 3 of my other brethren, was around engagement and how to not only just engage our members, but how to engage the broader community. And a lot of the points you've raised there, newsletters, online formats, websites, and even just the telephone call was raised and spoken about. And I do plan to invite Brother Harry along to talk at one of these speaker sessions in the near future. So it'll be a good mesh, I suppose, between the two topics.
I think one of the things is, Liam, I've been a member 42 years. When I first joined, we have turned 180 degrees. We really didn't tell people that we were Freemasons. We kept it a secret. There was nothing to be ashamed of, but that was the culture of the time. We certainly didn't put articles in the local paper. There was no such thing as the internet. We didn't even have faxes back then. But you wouldn't see a photograph of a Masonic event. And I don't even think there were too many annual marches back then. You might get an article back in the paper back in those days if the state governor, who was Grand Master back in the 50s, attended an event. But we were very shy of giving publicity. And so in those 40 years that I've been a member, we've turned around 180, and now we're saying, look, there's nothing to be ashamed of in what our messages are. We still keep our secrets, but we are also looking to expand in a way that people say, oh, I didn't know that about the Freemasons.
Yes.
And we'll have a multiplier effect with that, because people will see in their local paper, we'll be offering this content free to local newspapers. And I think you will find, for instance, that a number of them will take up the offer because they'll be looking for content with skeleton staffs. The same thing will happen with community radio. I think there's a great possibility for us to have a weekly community radio program which is syndicated to a whole lot of community stations free of charge. And we can get our message out there in an entertaining and informative way.
That's it. And
Liam?
Yes, sorry, Rob, go for it.
Yeah. I wonder if this is not a golden opportunity within Freemasonry to bring our partners into the picture a lot more. We're not talking about ritual. We're talking about Zoom meetings. My wife had to set up my screen for me today. Much more capable. I think we're ignoring, and we have ignored our partners in the past. I don't think there's any need for that. It would do wonders to our membership if we looked at that more closely. And look, as Ash said, we're not likely to be practicing much ritual between now and Christmas. I think it's a golden opportunity we shouldn't waste.
No, that's right, Rob. Does that mean I have to be master for a bit longer? Just throwing it
Probably.
out there. Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to have to be. So,
Look, I think the point that's just been made about partners is a great one. I can see that those lodges who want to, it won't be compulsory, there might be 2 meetings a month. And I can see that we'll be having a lodge meeting once a month, once the restrictions have lifted a little more. And we won't be able to do any ritual there for some time. We'll be able to do some business. We'll be able to have some education. But there'll be some members who won't be in attendance for the right reasons. But I can see a number of lodges also holding a second meeting by Zoom each month, and one that includes partners. So it becomes a more social affair, as it should. There'll be an encouragement for lodges, because we won't be having Souths in lodge buildings, to have more activity in restaurants, in hotels, cafes, members' homes with barbecues and so on. And there's another golden opportunity for us to have partners. There's also another part to that, and I'm really glad that you used the word partners. And up until a few years ago, I wouldn't have used that term. We actually have an opportunity with people in the same-sex community. Now, I know there will be argument about this, and I've got no desire to be controversial, but for many in the past, it's been a topic that we've never actually talked about. And if we take the statistic that there are 10% of the community who are same-sex involved, same-sex partners, we might get 2 partners, we might get 2 members for the price of 1 if our language is respectful and inclusive. Now, I'm not trying to force that idea on anyone or any lodge, but I think it's a conversation worth having.
no, and
I
you're
think
right.
you might find, Liam, that Argyle are steadily working down that path as we speak.
I do remember that. We missed maybe an opportunity, I think, in so much as Richard is a local down our way, yet our local paper has nothing. Do you have a contact at the LV Express that you're happy to share a story with? It'd be a great opportunity. We're never going to see it, not in our lifetime again, or my lifetime.
I just to perhaps short circuit I wrote a press release last Sunday. Richard only sent it back to me this morning, and we had it approved. Now, I know Bruce Allen at the Latrobe Valley Express, but we sent the editorial to his editor. We also sent it to the Gippsland Time at Sale and Maffra. We've sent it to the Bairnsdale Advertiser Group, the Yates Group at Bairnsdale, which covers not only Bairnsdale, but right throughout East Gippsland. And then I got a list from Richard saying, can you also send it to 3TR? Can you also send it to Win Television, 9 Television, the ABC? And so he did a radio interview this afternoon. So we're on our way there. It's not as early.
He has no shame in seeking publicity.
No, he does not. But anyway, the message has got out. a little later than what we thought, but it includes his personal history, his thoughts on Freemasonry, and a photograph of he and Kathleen. And so we'll be looking to, again, highlight that after Saturday's grand installation as well.
Did he mention brown coal?
Oh, he may have.
You always mention brown coal.
Feel free, gentlemen, to turn your mics on. I think that brings us to the official end, I suppose, of Ash's presentation. So from me, thank you very much, Ash. It's been very insightful talk. If you have any questions you want to direct to Ash, go ahead, or to anyone else. I look around the room and I see such great Masonic knowledge and that in this space. Feel free to share a question to Ash or to any of the other distinguished brethren in the room. I do have one. Sorry, David, what was that?
We're going to have an ad for Toyotas, how good they are.
I said distinguished brethren, David, not Jeff. He switched off at the moment.
His video switched off, but there
He can hear us. He's probably sulky.
I didn't mention the movie going to things, but anyhow, there you go.
Paul, while it's a bit quiet in the room, are you able to give us a bit of a 30-second elevator pitch on the membership VAT?
And the answer to that question is no. Ash has tested me on doing a 30-second elevator pitch, and my first attempt was 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
We've got him down to 90, so give him 90 seconds, Liam.
We'll pretend we're in the Eureka Sky Deck, so it's a bit longer than Myers in Deck Street.
In simple terms, and one of the most important things is that now the 4 VATs are working together. We all are also learning from each other, and therefore we're not overlapping or talking in contrary terms. It's one of the most important things that's happened in this new regime. I had to spill the entire membership VAT when I first came in, because it was largely working on what I would refer to as esoteric issues, things that they wanted to do rather than things that would actually make a difference to the lodges. I had to go for an interview the same as Ash did, and I said to them, the biggest thing I can do is use my ears and my mouth in the correct proportion. There's a lot of listening that's got to be done. The lodges out in the bush have constantly been told, and I can constantly visualize this finger coming at us. This is what you'll do. This is what you'll do. So the mantra that I've given to the membership VAT, and I've got totally endorsed by the board, is that we've got these groups and they're going to go and talk to the lodges, talk to the districts more particularly, and we're going to try and act as a feedback mechanism, an enthusiaster, and somebody who can actually deliver shopping lists. Ash talked about a cookbook, I talk about a shopping list. They are the same thing. So I've got 4 teams. The first of them is the engagement team. We should all be very happy with the engagement team. That's run by Ian Brown. Ian's team is responsible at the end of the day for getting new members, for growing new members. But a lot of that is about using the lodges themselves. I personally am a great believer that we seem to have a little bit lost our way in terms of going out and speaking to our next door neighbour who we know really well and we trust enormously, and saying, do you know what, you make a bloody good Mason. And the whole box and dice that goes with that. No instruction, just some ideas. They'll also be helping to engage with the community and so on. No prescriptions, just some ideas. But they were working strongly and heavily with the lodges and with the districts to try and get some fertility to those ideas. The second group that Ash talked about is the comeback team. The comeback team is run by Wayne Millard. Now, Wayne is another district coordinator. His team, they've got a fabulous team of people in there. Their goal is to work up all sorts of ideas, to work on the very people that Ash talked about who've disappeared off for whatever reason. My biggest fear at the moment is that we're leaking like a sieve. And with COVID lethargy, I'm really quite scared. And I'm hearing other types of lethargy that are coming forward too. A new breed, which is, so again, as Ash said, we probably won't be doing any ceremonial work till January. Well, why bother going back when we can open in August? It's a worry. And it's all of us, every single one of us, are part of the solution. It's not the membership that we'll be in there spinning the plates and getting everybody to, rehearse the same things. But I have to say, every one of us has got to pick up a mate and say, come on, let's go down to the lodge tonight, because we can. The third group, which should be dear to your heart, is called the Rural and Regional Group, run by Neville Wiggins. Neville is a country boy. He lives up near Wodonga, where it's even colder than here, for crying out loud. And their goal is to bring all the work that the other two groups do into context for the country. So again, I took this job primarily because I was sick and tired of primarily being in Lakes Entrance and now in Bairnsdale, of hearing Grand Lodge saying, you will, you will, you will. And the country, we didn't relate to it. We just couldn't understand what the hell they were talking about. And it was nothing to do with us. So Neville's goal is to bring that into context. And the second major strategic part of his role is to make sure that the country's voice is heard. It's so vital. So he'll also be coming up with different ideas and innovations and whatever else. He'll be talking to the country lodges. He'll be listening to the district coordinators. He'll be talking to the secretaries and the masters and the members. And we'll be getting out. When they allow us to travel around again, we'll be getting out and about. Meantime, we're holding Zoom meetings. Very exciting, that. And the fourth, and I think, to be honest, it's the glue that holds it all together, is the mentoring committee. And the mentoring committee is run by Peter White, who's been putting it together for some months now, even under my predecessor. They're now engaging regional trainers, and they are about to go live. They're about to start doing training online. You'll hear that through your various members of your lodges. The district coordinators are fully plugged into it. I see Jeffrey's here, so I'm sure he'll endorse that. And many people within the districts and down into lodge level are being trained up as both regional, district, and also lodge mentors. Doing that is going to be a marvelous thing for our members. It's a marvelous thing for every one of us. One of my personal passions is, I'll give you an example. I went into the lodge of Gippsland Lakes 3 years ago, and it was my 7th time through the lodge, through the chair, and I had never been in Victoria before. It was like a different world, a completely different world. It would have been smashing if somebody had come up to me and said, hey, Paul, let's talk to you about what it's like being a master in Victoria. It is different, believe it or not. So, they're building up schemes for mentoring masters. Whoever masters an IPM, who talks to an IPM about what does he do after being an IPM? Does he just go and sit, a feather duster in the back office? So there's a lot of great ideas been coming on, as well as those really important issues, which are taking our new members through their first, second, and third degrees, and knowing that they're not just walking away because people leave them on the bench. That's my 30 seconds. Apart from that, I've got nothing to say.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. Do have a question from Rob Kovacs. Why can't we do ceremonial work if we're allowed back into the lodge rooms? Probably.
Can anyone honest to God not answer that? I mean, the issue is it's all about government. It's all about government regulations and the social distancing. It's about hygiene. It's about the fact that we can't wear gloves because they are more a trapper of disease than bare hands are. We can wash our hands and we can put liquid alcohol or whatever on them, but we can't do that on gloves. Gloves will pick up infection. It's about the fact that we can't realistically run any of our ceremonies without getting pretty damn close to each other. We have to hold tools, whether it be, wands or, all the rest of the stuff. So the reality is, there is a team of people on a committee on which Ash and I both sit, who are working like crazy to see how they could modify the ceremonies to make such things work. And there's a strong hope that we can do some foreshortened or modified ceremonies. Will it give us the satisfaction? Will it give a candidate the satisfaction? I don't know. I don't know. I'm clever enough to do that. But those are the fundamental reasons. It's just simply practical.
I'm not too sure if this is going to cut out because we only get an hour on Zoom, but given that it's been an hour, I'm guessing we're good to keep going. Should we wish to? I suppose I have the question out to everyone. If we have all these new applicants, and Brother Ash mentioned Damien Hudson's been processing inquiries, if we've got all these new applicants sitting in the wings that want to join us, that can't and can't do degree work, how do we take them from the paper into a space like this? How do we engage with them? How do we get the hook? How do we set the hook so that when we can go back to meetings?
If they've already produced paperwork, we don't need a hook. What we need to do is just have a continuing conversation. They'll understand that we're in the middle of a crisis. They'll understand maybe even better than what Freemasons do. They'll understand that there's a time that's out of control of everyone at the moment. We've got a case in hand in our own lodge at the moment. There's been a guy who's been trying to get in, and I'll have a word with Paul Brennan about this. The poor fella made his first application in 2018. He got caught up in a situation with Grand Lodge where the rules changed and he had to basically start again. To his credit, the guy was in the middle of the process, and there was a rule that he had to go to 3 different lodges. He found a way that after going to 2 and then COVID-19, he went to our lodge, our lodge website, he downloaded the appropriate forms, filled out the forms himself, saying, I want to be a member of your lodge, and found a proposer, found a seconder, and put the money in the bank. That's how determined this guy was to become a member. Now we've got a situation where it's very doubtful that we'll be able to conduct a ballot for him, because I think there's likely to be difficulties with ballots if we don't have ritual and ceremonial going ahead at the moment. And so we just have to keep on inviting him to social affairs. If there's a barbecue, he's got to be automatically included. He's got to be included in not summonses, but notifications that are going around to the lodge. He's got to be included in phone calls. How you going, mate? A few of us are just catching up for a coffee. Would you like to join us? That's, I think, the extent of what we can do in the middle of an emergency.
And let's not lose sight of the fact that we get very few in the country applicants or suspects from those internet leads. Very few. I mean, when I was district coordinator, I think we had 6 or 8. Jeff will correct me. That might have been.
That's right.
Very, very few. So that's one of the reasons for the engagement committee being in its place, which is to get us back on track with bringing our own people in. Right out of the blue and timing and circumstances, it was actually the bushfires that created. Gippsland Lakes, who haven't had a candidate for 3 years, have got a candidate now. And this guy's doing his papers, filling his second schedule. And the guys are saying to me, oh my God, we've got to do him, we've got to do him. I said, well, look, it takes you 4 months. You've got to read him 3 times. You've got to do it. So that, and it's also, he's probably busy because he's working in. So there's a whole bunch of things that we can do. In terms of what it is for Ash's circumstance, he's got the worst of both worlds because they are getting applicants down there. And one of the things I'm doing quietly in the background, and I don't want to tread on more eggshells than I need to before 1646 on the 27th of June, we're making changes to the way in which those applications are being treated. We've cut out a lot of the BS that was going on down there. We've stopped this ad hoc business of changing the rules and the circumstances under which people can apply. We've changed everything back to the way it was when it actually worked. And Damien's really pleased about it. There is a phrase I use, but I won't use it on air. Shall we say, getting it back to normal.
You're going to undo it, Paul.
Oh, undo it. That's the phrase. That's the phrase, yes. So, you know, there's a lot of things we're doing. But you know what? If you've got a candidate, process him. I read a paper this morning, which I haven't circulated yet, which was actually from UGLE, where all the constitutions are sharing with each other. And they were saying one of the things we can do is have a secret ballot. How? Well, we get the deacons, for example, to stand at the door of the lodge, even when we can't perform ritual, and they'll have the tokens of ballot. they can all be washed and disinfected and so on, and in a sterile box. And then as they go, each member goes in, they take one of each. And then we make sure we've sterilised the box. And you know, you can work through the rest of it. And then at the end of it all, they all get sterilised, dried, and put back again. That's being thought through at the moment. So there are, you know, at the moment, where there's a will, there's a way, you know.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Why couldn't it be online? I sat through a school council meeting the other night where we took a secret vote, a unanimous, like a vote for CCTV, and it was directly to the school principal. So why couldn't it be to the master in the same fashion? Whether
I think there are many ways. We are, Ash talked about it there. We are testing all those rules right up the centre. You know, there are some traditional things, and it's not about, oh, we've always done it that way. The ballot, the secret ballot, is about you can have 2 blackballs, and the point of the anonymity is the anonymity is guaranteed of those people who put those blackballs in.
Yeah. Yep.
So how do you preserve that anonymity?
Yeah.
And that's why the innovation of potentially having sterile means of ballot at the door, you know, it might be an opportunity. I came up with an idea similar to yours, whereby, you know, everybody could individually phone the master, because he can know that, he can know everything. You know, and he then sits there for 20 minutes taking phone calls. So there are then practicalities and so on. So, but we're trying to do
20 minutes.
whatever rules we can.
No, look, and that's right. I think that's the positives I'm drawing out of this period, these last 12 weeks, aside from not having to wear shoes to go to work. And I'm still sitting in shorts at the moment too. So it's these opportunities that have presented themselves to put on sessions like this, where all of a sudden I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing members from all across the state. We wouldn't have had that. 18 participants sitting in the room at an Argyle meeting. That wouldn't happen on the second Monday of the month. It's great challenges, I suppose, that also present great opportunities. So thank you for coming along tonight. If there's any more questions, feel free to chime in. I'm sick of hearing my voice, so.
Yeah, if I could put one forward, probably to Rod in his capacity with the foundation. Is there an opportunity here for the foundation to, through Ash and his daily newspaper, to put it out to Victoria what the foundation is up to and about? What I found in the last 12 months in the team getting out into the country was there was that disconnect, and what the foundation was trying to do and trying to put out there with the $5,000 grants and the $20,000 grant, they weren't getting to hear about it. So is this an opportunity for the foundation to jump on board with Ash and, hey, this is who we are, this is what we've got, jump on board with it?
It's a great opportunity, Bill, yes. So in the past, whenever we do big events in specific areas, we try to promote it through the local media. And sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But to have a coordinated approach through Ash's team would be very beneficial, would be terrific.
I think an example was when Rod and Richard just recently presented the cheque for the Gippsland help. That received terrific publicity on Win TV. It got some press coverage. Certainly we got mileage out of it online to our own members. We only have to follow that example in every case. The offer has been put there to the foundation, and I think we also need to do the same thing for the homes, even though we are very separate, arm's length, parallel bodies. I think anything with the word Freemasons in it deserves to have a coordinated approach. We've got wonderful stories to tell. Sometimes we're not telling them. So I think, to take up the point that you raised in the question, the offer is certainly there. And I think as this changeover occurs on Saturday, I think it will be I think, to use the words of the acting president of the board, it will be a time to press the reset button. It gives us an opportunity to return to good ways. That's not a criticism of anyone. That's just a simple opportunity now to use good common sense ideas like you've just expressed.
So Graham's mentioned in the chat function, and I believe Graham's from, I'm going to guess this, up Wodonga Way, because he mentioned the Border Mail.
Yep.
Have a punt there. Mentoring will be live via Zoom, and then it'll be followed up with face-to-face meetings when the time comes. And that's most important. I think everyone's finding the opportunity to catch up on these sorts of things, which is what I'll do. I'll share this across our networks. When people can catch up and do it in their own times, I think that's great. I suppose to both VAT leaders, are you resourced enough from Grand Lodge, human and financial resourced, to deliver what the outcomes are for both VATs?
Liam, I'll go first on that. In our VAT, yes, we are. The Grand Secretariat and the marketing staff are terrific, and we need as a VAT to encourage them and to support them. We're not their overlord. We need to work alongside them. And as regards money, we had to put up our budgets for the 12 months ahead. Now, there were some fixed costs from previous years, and I know in Paul's situation it is a much different case. But I took the unusual step of saying we don't want any further funds. The organisation is going to be under great stress over the coming 12 months financially. So we are asking for $0. We believe that by intelligent use of asking for things, not asking for favours, but for asking for things, those things will be available to us. And I think for the 12 months ahead, we're going to have enough on our plate. So the quick answer to your two questions are, yes, we're adequately resourced by human resources, and secondly, we're adequately resourced with financial resources.
Paul, are you happy to answer that, or are you?
Yeah, no, mine's very quick too. Ash kind of skipped over the fact that he's got an absolutely outstanding team as well that are working towards making all that happen, and that's part of the resource. From my point of view, it's taken me 6 weeks to get a team together. We now have 4 teams with a total of 31 members on it in those 4 teams, reasonably evenly spread. So that's a great resource. Very much encouraged by the new team. We put our budget together. One of the biggest items I had in there that I inherited was $100,000 advertising money. And gratefully, because of my relationship with Ash, he's persuaded me I don't need it, and I've given that all back. And I'm very pleased to have done it, and it's proved to be correct too. We are going to do some interesting things, especially in the country. We're going to be funding some Facebook geo-focused programs around the country, which we've seen to work. Broadly similar to the Good Man campaign that was run 8-10 years ago, but different and much more geo-focused. And I think you'll all benefit from that. But we're not going to run it. We're going to bring it to you and say, here, how do you think about this? How would you modify it? What would you do to change it? And also, the guys are going to be doing a lot more traveling. They're going to be coming around to you. So I've put in the budget a bit of mileage for them, just because, you know, it's not fair on them to be traveling from Mildura to Omeo without having some sort of small competence. So they'll get the lowest level of, the permissible mileage. But yeah, totally. The staff, by the way, are just sensational. And I'm sure Ash would agree that we've been delighted to recover some of the frailties that we inherited. Some of the people there were feeling that they were not being not so much not loved, but not treated perhaps the way they should be. And they're feeling great now. And we've got some great people in the teams, really great. And they're very supportive.
Good to hear. One last question from me, Ash, before I think we all pull the pin and go and enjoy the TV in front of the heater. At the end of your tenure as chair of the communications VAT, what do you envisage to be your greatest success? What do you want to achieve?
Okay. I guess in newspeak we'd call that the biggest KPI of them all, the key performance indicator. We've got a theme that takes its words from a bit of ritual, and our theme is to be happy and to communicate that happiness to others. And if at the end of my tenure, it's a happier place, that we have communicated that happiness to others, I will think that our team has done its job.
Nice and easy, I think. I think you're well on the way to it already. The work you've done has been absolutely amazing, and once again, thanks for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you and to everyone else from far and wide. Thank you for coming along. It's